So I figured it was time for an update on Billy's old Shovelhead. Been working on it pretty hard. 77 FXS, first year of the Lowrider. Most of you probably remember the bike as the gray with the red, generally red Harley-Davidson tank emblems on it. Gray paint job, had the painted nose cone, rocker covers, lower fork tubes, and the outer primary that tended to chip and yellow over time, and you don't really see those around anymore. As in the case of here, it's all been cleaned, brushed off long ago. So this bike had been wrecked. The fork tubes were bent pretty badly back. He ran in the back of something and replaced the lower triple tree and new fork tubes here off of something. These are the standard 34 fork tubes. The original on the Lowriders were 36. I read in somewhere that was kind of a trick to make it more chopper looking like back in the day. Most of the work, obviously, I've been doing. My local indie, Gary, he's mostly retired and does odd jobs here and there at his shop. He has done most of the work that I'll describe as I go along here, just to keep me from getting too deep in this and keep it moving forward. Him being semi-retired, I'd like to feed him a little bit some of the easy work. Never turns out to be easy, and I'll point that out as I go along. So when I got this thing, it had been sitting when he moved into a second house a number of years outside, leaning against the fence. And I always gave him crap whenever I saw him or was over at his house that eventually a tree was going to grow up through the frame and he was going to lose it from something like that, and what the hell he was going to do with it. So it had sit on the rear tire flat and dry rotted pretty badly, so that was kind of necessary there. So what's been done to this, I started off with the tear down of the bike. I didn't pull the engine at all. It's been mounted in the frame as is. Basically cleaned and detailed the frame as best I could and moved forward with that. So it was down to the frame and the engine. Everything else was completely taken off and cleaned and replaced as necessary. So along with that, we'll start from the front. Obviously, these are the Avon Cobra Chromes. It had the Venoms on there. The tread was pretty good on them, but obviously, again, the rear tire was rotted pretty badly. I was going to try to use the front tire at the time, but as I got the point where I put the front tire on, that I figured I wanted a new matching front tire on there, fresher rubber, whatnot, and so front tires, front and back. Front wheel bearings were okay. Those have just been serviced. On the rotors here, I just basically palm sand them and get them knock the glaze off of them as best as I can, and any grooves or whatever, and they come out pretty good. Gary rebuilt the calipers for me on here. Put the new seals in there. Fork seals, he had problems. There was water up in there, and one of them was rusting there pretty good. He had difficulty getting one of those out, but new fork seals. We got some new handlebars because one side was bent a little bit. The neck bearings were pounded out a little bit. They were notched in the cup in the race. And so we've got some new cups and bearings up in there, some Pacos. Nothing done with the engine yet. This came with the old school Super, S&S Super B. I used one of those on my other Shovelhead over here years ago. I never really warmed up to it without the accelerator pump. I may put something else on here. Gary's got a brand new Super E shorty down there in his shop. He'd like to sell me. I may stick that on here. We work our way back here on this side. You did go through the transmission. It's got a new main seal. We took off the interesting thing about these is that in the past somebody had taken off the ratchet cover here. You can't get the transmission out if you take the bottom bolts out and lift the transmission straight up. It doesn't come out that way. You have to take the mounting plate bolts loose and then slide it out from the side. So at some point in the past, somebody had taken the ratchet cover off, and that because of the sprocket on the frame that's welded, they have to slide it back slightly to be able to lift it out of there. And when they replaced the gasket, slid it back in there, the gasket had actually caught the lip of the transmission there and pushed the seal back in there, so it was never sealed. It actually had a gap there, and when I drained it, half the transmission was filled with water. Gary had, checked it out. Everything looked good in there. Nothing worn too badly. He's got some sort of fixture jig for checking the alignment of the shifter forks. It's got a new throwout bearing on it, new main seal, like I said. I've redone the brakes. He did the rear caliper here. He rebuilt the master cylinder. However, he couldn't get it bled after that for whatever reason. So he said, I won't charge you the labor, but I'll just go ahead and sell you a new master cylinder. So we got a new master cylinder, a rebuilt rear brake caliper here. One of the bolts on the lower shocks here had been frozen on there, and I tore the bushing getting it out of there. These are progressive suspension, so I'm leaving those. I do have a set of stock ones, but apparently these are better. So tore one of the bushings, and I ended up going ahead and replace it with the two-piece ones. I had to shave them down so they didn't squish out too much, but that's all taken care of. New shock bushing then. Again, palm sander trick on the rear rotor, and that's pretty much on this side so far. Going over here to the other side, new chain and sprocket, obviously front sprocket too. Too bad I couldn't get the zinc plated one. Most of the stuff he's got down there at the shop is chrome. I was hoping to go with just the old school look on it, but whatever. Tsubaki chain on there. The inner primary here has been serviced with a new bearing here, new seal on the back, and what else here? The dirt, when the wreck happened, this had sheared off at the cover here. The cover I didn't have because it must have broke. They had basically cut off the section, the trick here, so they could mount the starter here. The bike was started after the wreck a couple times, utilizing that technique with a piece of the outer primary cover. The shaft had bent back and kind of cracked along the inner case there, and that's been fixed by Mark the welder. Obviously we got a new shaft in there. Got a new seal on the engine side here. Got a new bracket for the coil mount. What else here? I think that's about it on that side. So work is progressing. Oh yeah, we got the wheel bearings were toast in this. There was one side that looked like it had gotten pretty hot at one point, was pitted, and had a brown streak down around the bearings on there. And then the swing arm bearings have been done too. They were probably the worst. They were pounded out pretty seriously, and I think happens is those things, when they come loose, people come in and just tighten the bolt back down, and you get to the point where the swing arm will barely move up and down whatsoever because it's basically tightened down into the grooves that's worn into the races. So that's the status of this bike at the moment. I'm going to slide in the fender here pretty soon and do the clutch and all that fun stuff over there. And I'm putting basically a wide glide style wiring harness that I did the same thing on my 79. Basically, it locates the breakers right here and eliminates a lot of the wiring that's back here on this side kind of thing. So that's where I'm at. Stay tuned for an update later on. Thanks. Bye.